You good, Sid?
Okay. Welcome to the 2021 March Madness Preview Special brought to you by Second City Sports and WARR Media, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, and our special guest, Kyle Means, which is he. I am Sydney Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Kyle, where can people follow you on the Twitter and IG?
Yeah, work_right, WRK_WRT on Twitter, and IG is KMean, KMEAN.
Okay, we'll be joined by our special guest, Mr. Gabe Salgado for Athlon Sports. He does great work for them, and he'll cover the NCAA tournament for that site. He'll join us just coming up in just a couple of moments. Guys, we did have the NCAA tournament a year ago. Now we have it. It's going to be in 3 cities in the state of Indiana, including Indianapolis, which will host the Final Four this year. Our 2 local teams from Illinois, the Fighting Illini, which won the Big Ten Tournament Championship earlier today over Ohio State. And we'll have the Loyola Ramblers of Chicago, which that squad made the Final Four in 2018. They're back in the tournament once again for this season. Lakeena, I'll start with you. What are your chances that you're going to give to Illinois to perhaps make it out of the Midwest bracket?
I think they have a really legitimate shot. I mean, Ayo, played well today. Kofi Cockburn, played well today. Isaiah Hunter had a really good Big Ten tournament. There's a lot of depth in that Illinois squad, and I think they're more than capable of going in a deep run like that 05 team did. If you saw the Big Ten, title game that concluded just about an hour ago, the guys at CBS were, were sort of, praising that 05 team that it was the last time that they had won the Big Ten title, and they ended up going all the way to the national championship game. So this team is very capable. They seem very focused. It should be, it should be very interesting. They got a very interesting bracket in the Midwest, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think they have a really legitimate shot of going far.
I believe they have a legitimate shot as well because, as we talked about before, during this time of year, you need 2 things, actually 3 things in my opinion. Great guard play, great inside presence, and you have to have a third guy that comes in and does his role. Illinois has that. You have Ayo Dosunmu, as you mentioned, Lakeena, running the point. He did a very good job during this Big Ten tournament, including today's victory over the Ohio State Buckeyes. You have Kofi Cockburn, who's a beast inside. He's been doing that all year. And you have Adam Miller, Andre Cabello, and you also have Grandison as well. You have some guys that can contribute coming off the bench for the Illini, and I believe that Illinois has all the components that you need to have a great run in this tournament.
Kyle? We're joined by our special guest, Gabe Salgado from Athlon Sports.
Yeah, I was muted. I gave him a good intro and I was muted. My bad. That's our guest, Gabe Salgado.
It's okay.
Gabe,
That's the first time
ya?
that's happened. I'm doing good. Can you guys hear me over there?
Yes, we can. Okay, so set up with
Yeah,
what
man.
Can you hear you? Can you hear?
Yeah,
I can hear
Gabe.
everybody.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
You guys,
So you want me to go or you want Sid to go?
You go, Kyle. I think we lost Sid.
Yes, lost Sid for a second there. But yeah, as far as Illinois goes, yeah, I'm pretty high up on them as well. I think they're probably the most battle tested team overall in the tournament. They have more what they call quad 1 wins than anybody else in the tournament. They're playing up to their best level right now. They're playing really their best ball of the year right now. It sucks that they may have to knock out Loyola in the second round, but I think they're ready to play whoever, and that's going to be needed because they do have a tough tough bracket. I guess we'll go into it in detail in a little bit, but they got some teams in their top four, on top of playing possibly a top 10 Ken Palm team in Loyola in the second round. That's they're not going to have an easy. They don't have a real easy draw. It looks like.
And
Gabe,
of
what do you
course,
think about Illinois? No, go ahead, Gabe. Sorry.
No problem. Before I get to Illinois, let's just say, as much as we would like to see Illinois and Loyola in that second round, the Ramblers got to get past the red hot Georgia Tech team first. So
Sure,
that'll be that'll be first and foremost. But I think we would all love to see a local matchup in the tournament. But just like you said, Kyle, Illinois is battle tested. Gonzaga's undefeated, but look how easy their conference is. BYU was supposed to be the team that gave them a hard time this year, and it didn't happen. They went undefeated. They swept through the season, won their conference tournament again for the 10,000th time, it seems like. And Illinois really proved themselves when they won those 3 games without Ayo Dosunmu. When he missed those games with that broken nose, and just look at who they beat during that time. So that really proved to me that not only is this team well coached, but this team is definitely the real deal. If they made it for almost 2 weeks without their best player.
Gabe, talk to us about Illinois head coach Brad Underwood. Of course, his first couple of years, he didn't have the players that fit his system. He was trying to establish a culture. You start to see signs of that last year, even though we didn't have a March Madness tournament. Obviously, we have it this year. Talk to us about Mr. Underwood's impact on the Illinois program.
He is a perfect example of what happens when you give a coach time and when an administration is patient with him to let him build his team the way that he sees fit. Obviously there was expectations because of what he did at his previous coaching stops, but then those first couple of years were pretty rough, and everybody was wondering, well, Illinois, get out of this funk and become a winning team again. And this season happened, and they exploded right out of the gate. And losing Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn to the draft this summer is going to kind of sting next year, but I'm actually excited to see, what recruits Underwood brings in for next season that, kind of try to fill that void. But, this is definitely, I don't know if I could say this is on par with the 89 and 2005 teams just yet, but this is definitely one of the best teams they've had in program history for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that. Gabe. I think I would stay away from 89, but I think I like a comparison to the '05 team right now, especially when you look at the guard play with Cabello, Miller, and of course Ayo. Sort of comparing them to Luther Head, Williams, and Darren Williams, and D Brown. It seemed to be, just really the center of the team, really the explosiveness, the versatility that they offer. It reminds me a lot of '05. But then on top of that, you have that beast in Kofi, which, of course, Illinois didn't have in '05. If they had a guy like Kofi in '05, they probably would have smashed Sean May and all
exactly.
that in North Carolina, but Kofi probably may be the key, and that's interesting because in the tournament you usually rely on guard play and wing play, but Illinois they're going to have times where they're going to have to just take it inside and do some old school dominant post play.
Well, you take a look at most college basketball teams nowadays, they don't have anybody big enough to guard Kofi. A lot of teams, their tallest guy is 6'7", 6'8". They're trying to put a small forward to guard the center. A lot of college teams don't have those two centers anymore. So that's definitely a advantage that the Illini is going to have in this tournament. And if they do get to Loyola and that ends up being the second round matchup, that's going to be fun to watch between Kofi Coburn and Cameron Krutwig. Kofi obviously has the size and the strength advantage, but Krutwig's a better shooter, so that's going to be an interesting matchup there. But beyond that, you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find a team that has anybody that has the size and strength to contend with a Kofi Coburn.
Now, Gabe, my bad, I was muted for a second, but, Gabe, tell everybody, about Georgia Tech, because that's going to be a tough matchup for Loyola. Jose Alvarado, who's a Brooklyn kid, his story is amazing. I'm sure they're going to be talking about that, as it gets closer to game time. So how dangerous is the Georgia Tech team for Loyola, because they got hot at the right time.
And they also took advantage of an ACC that really wasn't as competitive as it normally would be. Obviously Duke had to drop out of the tournament because of COVID-19, and Notre Dame wasn't as good as they normally would be. North Carolina's having somewhat of a down year, even though they did get into the tournament. Georgia Tech's they have the potential to surprise a lot of teams, just like they did in this tournament. You take a look at the last probably 10, maybe even 15 years. Georgia Tech, you weren't really thinking about basketball when it came to Georgia Tech. You were thinking more about football. So now it's good to see that they're putting the basketball program back on the map down there, and they're going to give Loyola everything they can handle.
Gabe
Georgia Tech used to have some teams back in the day. Sorry, see, I said
that was okay.
Tech used to have some.
Yeah, I'm about to say they made
Kenny
it to
Anderson.
Yeah, well, and it made it to the national championship too.
In the 90s, they definitely had some good teams, but
I think
in the 90s, Georgia Tech had a lot of good teams then. So, but the point being that it's been a while since they've had a basketball team that's been this good.
Gabe Salgado of Athlon Sports is joining us right now on our 2021 March Madness preview special presented by WARR Media and Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee and Cal Means. I am Sidney Brown. Gabe, let's go back to Illinois for just a second. As I brought up at the top of the show, you need three components, I believe, to win an NCAA title. Great guard play and great inside presence, which Illinois both have. Who's that third guy, in your opinion, that needs to step up in this tournament? Is it Cabela? Is it Williams, who came up big in today's win over Ohio State? Is it Miller? Who's going to be that third guy, in your opinion, to help Illinois' two superstars?
Ideally, you'd like all three of them to be able to do that. They all bring a different set of skills to the table. They both can shoot the ball really well. They can all shoot the ball really well when they're hot at the right time. Ideally, you want to have all three of them step up, especially when you take a look at the talent that Illinois could potentially go up against in this tournament. So, they're going to need contributions from everybody on top of the big players. So, I'd have to say you probably want all three of them to get hot in this tournament.
Should be very interesting. Now, Gabe, let's talk about the entire tournament for a second. I know you've had a chance to look at the bracket. Who's that double-digit seed that people should just look out for, and will be that popular team that people will pick to go far in the tourney?
I don't know if I picked them to go far, but I do definitely think they'll pull off a surprise or two, and that's going to be Oregon State. You take a look how they came out firing in last night's Pac-12 championship game. Won the school's first conference tournament title, and they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of speed. And I have them pulling off that 12-5 upset in their first round game with Tennessee. So I think maybe they'll be going to watch, probably win a couple of games in the early going here.
Let's go to the East region, Gabe. I think this is going to be a trendy pick. You have number 5, the Colorado Buffaloes, taking on the number 12 seed Georgetown Hoyas. Congrats to Patrick Ewing for bringing that program back to prominence. I think Georgetown's going to be a popular pick because of their run in the Big East tournament. Do you give them a chance in pulling off an upset and perhaps making a run in this tournament?
If they can step up defensively again like they did against Creighton last night, they have a chance. But Colorado has too much offense, I think, and it's going to be a tough out for them. But if they could step up defensively again, they'll certainly give themselves a chance.
Bio's really good though. The freshman, he is really good for Georgetown. He's been, and Javon Blair too. So that's a pretty good team that Patrick Ewing has. So I wouldn't be surprised if Georgetown does pull off an upset or two.
You definitely got to give them credit because they started day one of the Big East tournament. Their record wasn't that great, and they pushed on through. So definitely got to give them credit for that. And if they can keep putting together those type of efforts, especially the way they played against Creighton last night, they certainly will give themselves a chance.
It's just my favorite story right now. And
yeah.
It's that's the only team outside of Illinois that I feel connected to because I remember a little bit of the Hoya paranoia. I remember Corey Iverson, and we all know the connection that Georgetown has with black basketball fans going back to to Big John, and you lose him this year. It seems very much of a team of the moment, because they are playing in the memory of Big John, and you have you in there who's the connection to that previous era, and he got disrespected in his building. They got disrespected in the garden. He had to show him what was up. So I'm definitely rooting for Georgetown, man.
I certainly miss those glory days of Georgetown under both Thompsons. And that was certainly a lot of fun basketball to watch, especially Allen Iverson. And, I really like to see them, make a couple of surprises in this tournament. It's certainly going to be some hard work they'll have to put in. But, like I said, if they can keep coming with that same determination that they showed in the Big East tournament, they'll certainly be able to give themselves a chance this year.
You're listening to our March Madness preview special presented by Second City Sports for the 2021 March Madness, along with Lakeena McGee and Kyle Means. I am Sidney Brown. We're joined by Gabe Salgado of Athlon Sports. Gabe, I want to stay in the East bracket for just a moment. Of course, Michigan's the number one seed, and their superstar player, Isaiah Livers, is currently injured. Looking at that bracket, maybe Alabama, in my opinion, can surprise some people with the number 2 seed in that bracket. Do you see anybody challenging Michigan coming out of that East bracket?
If anyone can, it will certainly be Alabama. I was definitely surprised by them this year. Normally, when it comes to, Alabama Crimson Tide, you don't really think of championship basketball. You think of championship football. So, it's really good to see the way that they've played. They surprised everybody this year, and especially in their conference. Obviously, the SEC championship game was a tough game for them. They had to grind it out in the end, but I definitely think that Alabama could give Michigan a run in that East region.
Let's go out west for a second, Gabe. I know I'm already seeing people say that, Gonzaga's got a very easy path to the tournament. They've already beaten the 2, the 3, and the 4 seeds by double digits in the regular season. Do you agree with the folks that say that they're already saying that Gonzaga's got an easy path to go into the Final Four easily?
I can understand why that argument is being made, but I honestly have Gonzaga as one of my Final Four picks. I think they could probably make it all the way to the national championship. Whether or not they can cap off the season completely undefeated and with that trophy depends on who they have to play as they get further down the road. But at the moment, they're a Final Four pick that I have.
Me and Keena were both of one mind on Iowa on the opposite side of that bracket. Talking on Twitter when they were releasing the matchups. Iowa takes on Grand Canyon in the 2:15 matchup, and they're more than just that school that you see at 3:00 on that the 3:00 advertisements. Now they have the
right.
They have Bryce Drew as their coach, and he's experienced both as a player and coach in March Madness. He knows how to take some big schools down. So I'm confident, though. I like the Big Ten teams overall, the top Big Ten teams overall, because like I said with Illinois, all of those top teams they've been fighting all year and fighting in the Big Ten alone. So I Scrappy, they got great shooters. They got, of course, Garza, but I can also see them losing that game. But if they get out of that game, I could just as easily see them meet up with Gonzaga in that Elite Eight match.
It's definitely possible. Certainly something that, to me, the thing with Iowa, when Garza's motor's going, that team is hard to stop. And, the only chance that most teams have is to take him out of the game. When Illinois defeated Iowa in that second meeting, they took Garza out of the game. And, that first meeting of the regular season, Garza dominated. So it's all about, whether or not you can, at least contain him, if not stop him. And that's going to be the key for anybody facing Iowa this year. He's going to be, top 10, maybe even a top 5 pick when the draft comes around. So, he's definitely the engine that makes that team go. And, he's going to have to be the one to carry them in the tournament.
One of the fun factors that I like about the NCAA tournament every year is that the 7-10 matchups, but mostly the 8-9 matchups are toss-ups. And the one matchup that highlights it for me is in the South region, number 8 North Carolina taking on number 9 Wisconsin. Both teams struggled down the stretch. I know North Carolina turned it around a little bit. Wisconsin really struggled to end the regular season game. Who do you give a shot in this matchup?
Just like you said, Wisconsin struggled down the stretch, and certainly when it came to those big games at the end. And I think that North Carolina is going to use that to their advantage and pull out the win there.
I'm getting like old Big 12 vibes from another 8-9 matchup out west. You got Oklahoma and Missouri, two old, Big 12 rivals clashing. That should be a fun one there. What else, what other matchups are you looking forward, Gabe, in the first round? Because there are some really intriguing ones.
I'm looking forward to seeing that Florida-Virginia Tech matchup, that 7-10 game. And I think that Virginia Tech can pull off a little bit of the upset there. And that's one game I'm looking forward to seeing. Oklahoma, Missouri, like you said. I have Oklahoma winning, but I think Missouri is going to give them a fight. It's going to be a very close game. And, like I said, I like to see Oregon State, pull off that 12-5 upset. So I definitely have to say there's a lot of interesting matchups in this year's tournament. And it's going to be people are going to have some tough decisions when they start filling out their brackets. That's for sure. There's a lot more matchups that are going to catch people's eye and make people interested. Where, as in most NCAA tournaments, you kind of have a good idea of who's going to win and who's not. And that's not the case this year because you have the potential for some upsets and some very interesting matchups as the tournament progresses.
Heading down the home stretch with Gabe Salgado at Athlon Sports on our Second City Sports March Madness preview special right here on WARR Media, along with Keena McGee and Kyle Means. I am Sydney Brown. Gabe, going to the Big Ten, assuming that Illinois takes care of business and make it to at least the Final Four, do you see any Big Ten teams making long runs?
Other than Iowa, obviously Michigan certainly has the potential. Again, as you mentioned, their top player is injured, but I definitely think they're well coached enough that they can make a run. I'm curious to see what Purdue does. Purdue finished in the top 4 in the Big Ten this year, and I think Michigan State might sneak up on a couple teams here too. They obviously got a first 4 game this year. I think they can win that, and I think that Tom Izzo might find a way to turn it on come tournament time again, like he's done in years past. So, certainly the Big Ten's going to make some noise in this year's tournament, no question about it.
Gabe, it's rare that all 4 number 1 seeds make it to the Final Four. It happened a few years ago, but again, I think that was like the second time that's ever happened. Do you see all 4 number 1s make it to the Final Four this year?
I can definitely see it happening with Baylor, Illinois, and Gonzaga. Michigan, that's going to be a little bit of a tougher goal for them when you take a look at who else is in that region, Alabama, for example. So it could happen, but it all depends on how Michigan plays out. But I definitely see the other 3 number 1 seeds making the Final Four this year for sure.
With Rivers being out, I think you got to look at someone on that other side of the bracket in Michigan's bracket. I like Alabama and Texas, probably fighting out for who gets out of that region.
Yeah, that's Michigan's probably going to have probably the toughest track to the Final Four just based on the other competition that's there. But like I said, it's possible we could have all 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four again. But that, like I said, it all depends on what Michigan does.
Okay. Last question from me, Gabe. Of course, Duke, Virginia, and Kansas all had to pull out their conference tournaments due to COVID issues. Of course, Duke didn't make the tournament, but Kansas and Virginia, they're all set to go to participate in this year's tournament. Do you think we're going to have a smooth ride for the next 3 weeks, or do you think we're going to have some minor bumps in the road as the NCAA tries to complete this tournament?
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that does. Obviously, with the tournament being in a bubble this year, there's going to be strict testing and contact tracing for sure. So I'm holding out hope that that's the case. Um, you know, Duke, with the positive test at Duke, that's actually more of a university-wide problem. I think it was over 100 Duke students had tested positive, and obviously it got to a player or two on the basketball team. So, I would have to say, if it's within the team, that's one thing. But if it's more of a school-wide issue, like it was with Duke, that's another. But I'm really holding out hope that we'll be able to get every game in. You won't have any forfeits or postponements or anything of that nature like we did in some of these conference tournaments. But I definitely I'm holding out hope that they're going to find a way to do it, and that with this bubble environment that it should all work out.
What player or team are you sort of like you have your keen eye on? I know you're very good, keeping your eyes on teams and players. Which couple of players and or teams that are going to have your eye on in the tournament, Gabe?
I'm honestly going to have my eyes on Loyola. We all know what happened in 2018. Nobody gave them a shot at making it to the Final Four. Now they're considered, not necessarily an elite team, but certainly one that more teams respect and more teams take seriously now. And, like I said, I'm curious to see, one, how they fare against Georgia Tech, and if they match up with Illinois, what is going to be their approach to take on Illinois. So Loyola is certainly somebody that I'm gonna keep an eye on. Obviously, the Illini and that East region. I'm curious to see how that ends up turning out, because I think that bracket has the potential to, to screw up a lot of people's office brackets this year for sure.
All right, that was Gabe Salgado, Athlon Sports. You can follow him at Gabe Salgado82 on the Twitter, and you can catch his work throughout the tournament. Gabe, thank you so much for joining us here today on our Second City Sports NCAA Tournament Preview Special. Keep up the great work, my man, and let's do this again soon, okay?
Definitely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right.
Thanks, Gabe. You stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, Gabe.
You too.
All right, that was Gabe Salgado once again at athlonsports.com. Check out his work there. Guys, before we continue with the bracket breakdown, going back to Illinois' performance earlier today against Ohio State in their Big Ten tournament title game, I was very impressed by the role players that Illinois they had. Their performance was outstanding today. Outside of Colburn, of course, you had Trent Frazier, which I forgot to mention earlier in this broadcast, but he came out big with a couple of threes. Williams came up with some big hoops down the stretch. Aaron Cabela did his thing. So I like the combination of those players, as Gabe talked about. We talked about with Gabe in this interview. Illinois needs all hands on deck if they're going to win, possibly win this title, because you have Dosunmu, who's their leader on the floor. Heaven forbid, with an injury or foul trouble, you need the other guys to step in and step up. And I like the roster that Illinois has right now.
Big Georgie came up big too. He had a stretch where it was
Yes.
like 10 points in a row. Yeah. And sometimes he does some bugged out things sometimes when he's in there telling Kofi, but they're gonna need him definitely to allow Kofi to get some rest and to rotate in and be that big man and have that extra presence that Kofi gives when he's out there. So yeah, you're right, Sid. They were great role play from the Illini today. I think it was about 6 or 7 guys had double digits. So that's exactly the type of performance you want. You don't want to have Kofi and Io have to score 20 or 30 points, or 50 or 60 points between them. They may have to do that once or twice in this tournament, but if they have to do it every game, they're going to be in trouble.
I love Capello. I love his energy. I mean, 16 points, including some big points in those last few minutes and overtime when Ohio State was just, they kept trying to knocking on the door and trying to, break through. They had to leave for a little bit. Capello made some big shots. like you guys said, they're going to need that, that bench, those role players to step up. That way you don't have to depend on Io and Kofi and Trent Frazier. So I really like, this Illinois team. Like I said, if we kind of keep, this energy up through the tournaments, I mean, nothing's really going to stop them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
Also,
I worry about that though. Well, I say I worry about that. That's the one thing I worry about, right? Because it's 6 more games, and they've, like I say, they've come. You worry about if they've come to a peak at this point. Like, they're playing their best ball, but can they play even better, or can they at least sustain the energy that they had in, like, today against Ohio State? They pretty much had an easy time of it in the conference tournament, except for today. But like I say, just maintain the energy and the level of play over the next 6 games. Can they do that? That's going to be the major challenge for them.
I want to go back to earlier today with the SEC championship between Alabama and LSU. LSU, they were going back and forth in that second half. LSU had a chance to win at the buzzer. There was an air ball on the 3, and then the tip-in was missed by nearly this much, and LSU lost it. But I think that Alabama, looking at that bracket, as we talked with the Gabe Salgado a few moments ago, it depends on if and when Isaiah Livers gets back for Michigan. Alabama, people have been sleeping on them all year. I kind of like their chances of coming out of the East.
Nate Oates has done a great job with that program. I mean, it's not just a football school anymore, folks. I know they just won a national championship, but look, Nate Oates has done a great job with that program. Yes, Avery Johnson was there for a few years. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but that's a deep team in Alabama. And I look, this is their first, I guess, tournament title since like the early 2000s. And there's a lot of depth in that squad. I think they have a shot here. I think Alabama could probably be sort of like that trendy Final Four pick for folks in that region, especially with, we don't know if Livers is, like you said, if Livers isn't going to be able to come back, but I really like that team. Shackelford, is probably one of the best players that a lot of folks probably have never seen or heard of. So, Alabama, look out for them. They might, go far in the tournament.
And we talk about LSU, the other team in that final. They could go on a run as well. I'm looking at the bracket. They could meet Michigan in that second round. It may be more ideal to meet Michigan in these first 2 games because it's less of a chance for them to see Rivers or to see Rivers at 100%. So, when you talk about LSU, you got, Cameron Thomas, you got some players there. They had the young man today, I forget his name, but he had I think about 30 points in that game. Another one of their guys. But LSU, man, they got some players. So if they could get past Michigan the first 2 rounds, their second round, I should say, maybe they could be meeting having a rematch with Alabama in the Elite Eight.
Going to the Midwest bracket, Lakeena, you talked about Oklahoma State for the last couple of weeks on our regular show. Cade Cunningham, he's one of the top prospects in the country. He may be the number 1 prospect being drafted in the NBA draft coming up this summer. But I like that matchup with Liberty. I think they'll get past Liberty, but there's potential second-round matchup between OK State and Tennessee or possibly Oregon. I'm looking forward to watching Cade Cunningham to show his skills on the big stage.
I think I'm glad we get a chance to because OK State has some issues with NCAA, but they got clear. They got they're getting a chance to I think also too it helps that he is a potential top pick if not a top 3 pick at most. So I think a lot of people probably want to see him or perhaps maybe put on a show. The Liberty matchup. I'm a little, I'm not going to say they're going to pull off an upset Liberty is, but I think, OK State, don't take them lightly, but hopefully they can kind of have a collision course with Tennessee. I think, that should be a really favorable matchup for them. And look, we'll see. I mean, that Midwest bracket, guys, is, we'll get to like the regions in a second, but that Midwest bracket looks very interesting because that's a log jam, that Midwest bracket, no doubt.
Cade already is a pro to me, man. Hopefully he ain't doing nothing untoward and at school already. But the way I'm talking about the way he plays. You know,
Yeah.
he's a guy you can rely on in the clutch. He's a guy who can really take over the game. And some people have had that issue with him at certain points of the season. You know, he takes off a little bit because the game it comes so easy to him. But you know, when I think when the time comes, he knows what to do on the court as good as anybody in the nation. And I think he's going to definitely be up for these games. I could see him having a mellow like run where he carries that team in the loss as a freshman to a deep run in the tourney, and the way up, they could see Illinois in the Sweet 16, and you know that's going to be a lot of storylines with that matchup with Brad Underwood having come from that program, and you know it will be very interesting. It'll be a nail biter for Illini fans if they have to see Cade in that Sweet 16.
I want to get you guys' opinions as I'm taking a look at the 7 to 10 matchups across the board. You have Oregon versus VCU, Florida versus Virginia Tech. Also, in the last two brackets, you have Clemson versus Rutgers and Connecticut versus Maryland. Out of those 4 7-10 matchups, which one is one of you guys? Which one of those 7 to 10 matchups out of those 4 you guys are looking forward to the most?
You go first, Kyle.
I'll jump Rutgers and Clemson. Rutgers are definitely a team to respect. They they beat Illinois in December. Illinois wasn't the same team they are now, but they played them the other day. They wasn't as good, but Rutgers still has a lot of talent. You know, Ron Harper Jr., a couple other guys. They could, they got some scores on their team. So Clemson, they've had a good season, but again, you have to worry about the state of competition in the ACC right now. Are they really battle tested enough? So I would say that as a rookie, with possibility of winning in that 17, I like Rutgers over the other matchups.
The Florida VOD Tech one's interesting to me because I think those are two teams that kind of struggle late down the stretch. Virginia Tech had their COVID issues. They were off for like almost 3 weeks. They kind of started getting back into their groove. So, that should be interesting too. And, Florida, I think Mike might have just saved his job by getting into the tournament because I know I have some friends down there and they said that, they won his head. So that he got the Gators got in the tournament. So hopefully, that he's off him for a little bit. UConn and Maryland, though, is also another interesting one, too. Danny Hurley has done a great job with that UConn program. This is their first, trip to the dance in a while. So I like, this is definitely going to be one of those, knock 'em, sock 'em, Northeast matchups with UConn and Maryland. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Lakeena. I picked the UConn-Maryland matchup. Of course, I watched UConn a little bit. They are very good defensively, but watching Maryland more because we are in Big Ten country. I know they started off kind of hot, then they struggled in the middle. They kind of came alive at the end towards the end of the regular season. But I think Maryland can give Connecticut a great game. I'm actually picking Maryland to upset Connecticut.
Okay, the popular 12-5s. Everybody picked at least one 12-5. Which, 5-12 matches are you guys looking forward to seeing? And which ones do you guys think can pull off the upsets?
Okay.
Like I said earlier,
you go ahead and see it. Let me see real quick.
Okay.
We go
as I said earlier, Lakeena, I think most of America is going to pick Georgetown over Colorado because of Georgetown's hot run to the tournament title in the Big East. But for me, I'm looking at Oregon State against Tennessee. I know Tennessee has had a great year coming out of the SEC, but I think Oregon, with their size, can give Tennessee a problem. So I'm looking at that matchup, 12-5 matchup that no one's talking about.
You know what? I could see something in all these matchups. Like you say, Sid, and like I said earlier, much love for Georgetown. They're a sentimental favorite. Looking at UC Santa Barbara and Creighton, Creighton just looked so trash in that Big East fight. I mean, maybe they'll come around and maybe they'll have a chip on their shoulder coming out of that game, but it's hard to have any confidence in them right now. Winthrop and Villanova. In any other case, I would ride with Villanova, but with them being out Connor Gillespie, you wonder just where they're going to be at on any level right now. And, Tennessee and Oregon State. Tennessee, definitely a respectable team. Oregon State, just coming off a tourney win. They're still a big school as well. So they may have a lot of confidence. They should be playing with a lot of confidence. So I could see either one of these matchups where the lower seed comes out. I would say expect at least two. And I'll edge more towards Georgetown and Winthrop, I'll say.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Kyle, because, Winthrop, that's a veteran squad. I think they only have like 2 losses, Winthrop does. And like you said, they have a couple injuries to key guys. They lost Gillespie, of course, a couple of weeks ago. So the way they looked against Georgetown in the tournament a few days ago, I am not very confident. Creighton and UCSB, I mean, I'm sure that's going to be another trendy one people are going to pick, especially how Creighton looked, against Georgetown. Of course, Georgetown, speaking of, that will be a trendy pick too against Colorado. I think they can pull off that upset. The Tennessee Oregon State's going to be very interesting too. Gary Tickle's done a great job of that Oregon State program, building from, basically from the ground up. So I'm not going to say they're all going to, be upset, but I think, like you said, Kai, I think at least 2 of them could and probably will happen.
Yeah. You're listening to our 2021 March Madness preview special presented by Second City Sports and WARR Media, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, and Kyle Means, which is he. I am Sidney Brown, which is me. Let's go to Florida State, guys, in that East region. I talked about this earlier with Alabama possibly making a run coming out of the East, especially dealing with the injury to Isaiah Livers from Michigan. Florida State has been knocking on the door for the last few years to reach the Final Four. What is the percentage that you guys give Florida State to make it to at least the Final 8, if not the Final Four? I'll go with you first, Lakeena.
That USC Greensboro matchup, though, I'm a little bit iffy on that. I saw them play a couple of times, and they got some really good, players on that team. So I would say, I'll say maybe 30. I'll give them a third of a shot, like maybe 30%, because, the way it's all going to be set up with, being in a bubble and whatnot, you don't know how teams are going to look. Some teams may have to drop out. So I'll give them the 30% shot. I'll give them a shot because, they probably could have went far last year. Totally different team. They got some of the same guys, but I'll give them like maybe a 28 to 30% chance.
Kyle?
I'll say a solid 25, like a 1 out of 4. I admit in my first overview of the bracket of the region, I kind of slept a little bit, but I was focused more on the other side. I was talking about Texas and Bama, but given that they are on the side of the bracket with Michigan and LSU, Colorado as the high seeds, I could see them possibly knocking, I could definitely see them knocking off Georgetown in round 2. And, maybe it being a toss-up matchup with an LSU or Michigan in the Sweet 16. Florida State they produce good athletes. They produce, though they play a unselfish, nice type of modern basketball, positionless sort of basketball. Bulls fans, we can attest to what they did Patrick Williams this year as the young boy produced as a freshman last year. He's ready for the league right away at 19, So you see those guys down there now, they seem to just pump out guys like that. So definitely I got respect for Leonard Hamilton in that program, and I could definitely see them at least getting to the Sweet 16, them going beyond that. Maybe a little bit of a struggle. I may like LSU a little bit more in that Sweet 16 matchup.
We brought up earlier Winthrop and possibly Georgetown pulling off first-round upsets, and maybe one or both of those teams can become Cinderellas this year in 2021. Do you guys see any other teams that we haven't mentioned yet that could make a Cinderella run? I'll start with you first, Lakeena.
like I said, UCSB could probably, pull off, beating Creighton and perhaps beat whoever ends up, whether it's, Virginia or Ohio. That's another one. Our girl Layla Rahim would not, forgive us if we didn't say her North Texas, as they play Purdue. I mean, look, I think they have a shot. I mean, I think they got a veteran group of guys down there down there in North Texas. I know Syracuse probably would be another Trinity pick, but wait, would that really be a big upset? I mean, they ended up just getting in. Maybe Michigan State. You never doubt Tom Izzo in the tournament. So, we'll get to them because Kyle and I talked about their first four matchup. I mean, my goodness, but I would think those are probably the team. Maybe Georgetown. That's going to be a Trinity pick too. So I think those would be the teams that to probably watch out for.
Yeah, I don't know if this is still the case, but for a while, I think you guys remember it. It almost was a certainty that a first four team would go deep into the tournament. So I'm gonna call on that again and say that maybe the UCLA Michigan State winner will go on a run, and coming out of that, I think I'm not sure who they will play. Well, I guess it would be maybe BYU in the next round after that, but or USC.
Yeah, USC.
USC.
I think that winner, Michigan State UCLA, will play BYU.
BYU,
BYU, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I could see that, and that sort of goes against my Texas. But I'm not too big on Texas. I just picked them out, but beyond those schools, big schools, I'm liking some. I'm thinking about some small schools that play some high tempo ball that could get some points up. I like Ohio in that West. Think about Ohio in that West bracket. Virginia, of course, they like to slow things down. Tony Bennett, defense first, everything. But they're going to have a hard time sticking Ohio. Ohio played Illinois real good early in the season. So, look at that team. Look at, Winthrop again in the Baylor bracket, as well as Colgate. And let me see, in Illinois' bracket, if there's a small school I like. Not maybe a small school, but maybe Cleveland State if they could knock off Houston. But I don't know if I'm gonna pick them knocking off Houston. But if they can that's gonna be a wide open awakening performance.
Jim Boeheim would like a word on that one with Cleveland State. Just saying, from years ago.
We're heading down the home stretch on our March Madness preview show right here with presented by Second City Sports and WARR Media, along with Lakeena McGee and Kyle Means. I am Sydney Brown. Guys, usually at this time of year, there's controversies in terms of which team or teams got left out of the bracket. I know some people picked Louisville, but I didn't get that sense that even though we're dealing with COVID and various issues and postponements and cancellations throughout the season, I was listening to the head of the tournament committee on CBS, and he talked about the average game set that all the teams played was 23. But getting back to the teams that were left out, I really didn't get a sense of controversy this year of teams being that should have been in that got left out. I think the committee did a good job as far as given the situation that we're in right now. Nothing's going to be perfect, but I give the tournament selection committee a B+, A-.
Same here. I probably give them probably a good, cause especially the way you don't know which teams may or may not get in or may not be available. So when it comes to like Louisville and St. Louis, they only played 20 games. Both of them had COVID issues. So that now what? Yes, it wasn't it was in their control. But again, the reality of it. Colorado State, you probably say they just didn't have enough wins. Ole Miss, same thing. They just didn't have enough wins. So I look. I mean, usually I would have a gripe about how the heck this team, how did they get in there? How, I really don't have an issue. I know some say Syracuse didn't get into the first four, but okay, they got hot late. They lost a tough one in the ACC tournament. So, but I don't have any issues with them getting in, and I think look, this is a good good field at 68, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, for as difficult a year as it's been, with the lack of complete schedules being made, and much less intra-conference play than we had, out of conference play than we typically. They did a really good job, and like there's not an obvious team right side of the bubble that you can look at and point and say that it's representative of some unfair selection process. Like you said, there's a couple of big name schools, that maybe could have a gripe, but to me, it's more this. What jumps out more is that the big schools just didn't play up to the level of the tournament this year. Duke, Kentucky, and being chief among them, not having them in the tournament is a unique thing, both of them. And I would have, if Drake didn't get in, they get a first four game. I made my gripe for them on behalf of them being the Missouri Valley Conference brethren. But they get to the chance of playing Syracuse, like you say, Lakeena. So yeah, it's a pretty good 68 that they put together, and let's get it up. See who's the best team.
Before I get you guys' final four picks, I asked this question to Gabe Salgado earlier in the show. I'll ask you guys. I'll start with you, Lakeena. Do you think they will have any major or minor issues as this tournament gets started coming up late next week? Do you think it's going to go smoothly, or do you think we'll have some minor hiccups? Do you think we'll get it completed?
I hope so. I think you guys probably couldn't hear. I'm on my desk, knocking on wood. But I hope so. I hope we get through with no hiccups. One team has to leave because they got a positive test, and another team has to come in. I know Greg Gumbel kind of made it as simple as he could, but as soon as the game starts, you're not if you have a positive test, no teams are not going to be able to replace you. So I hope we get through without a hitch. I know they're going to let fans in. Hopefully they're going to kind of do like they do in the NBA with a bubble. Sort of a mini bubble because they're going to have fans, but I hope so. I mean, we'll keep our fingers crossed that, we don't have to worry about, cancellations and postponements and having to move stuff back. So I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. They're giving the teams every chance that they can to have them play, once they get into that greater Indianapolis area. I think they said if you have eyes, you can play a game, so, hopefully there's not a situation where a team only has 5 guys and they can't make any substitutions throughout the game. But, I think, at the worst, maybe a game or two may, like you've seen with some of these conference tournaments, maybe you'll have a game or two that is where a team gets to skip ahead because their opponent couldn't field the team. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but at the worst, I think that's what I would see happening. We're going to get this tournament in, and we're going to have a champion crown. They can't do it for a second year to have a champion knockout in the NCAA tournament.
I agree with you guys on the majority of the points. The NCAA they got to have the mindset and the mentality of the NFL. Come hell or high water, we're going to get this in. As you mentioned, Kyle, there was no March Madness last year. If some games had to get moved around to be played on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday before the next round begins, they'll have to do that if the situation lines up that way. But I'm with you guys. I'm hopeful that we'll get this tournament in with few or no delays at all. We all know it's about money at the end of the day. Everybody gets paid except for the athletes, but that part is another issue for another podcast. But I have high hopes for this tournament. Is it going to be one of the greatest that we ever seen? That remains to be seen. But I'm just excited to have the tournament. Even though games are not being played around the country, they'll be played in 3 cities in the state of Indiana. I'm just happy to see that we're going to have a tournament this year, unlike a year ago.
Definitely.
Should be a lot of fun. I mean, some of those first 4 games, of course they put all the HBCUs in the first 4. Of course they did, put both of them in there. Nice thing, Norfolk State and Texas Southern, representing. Although that Wichita State and Drake, that's giving like old Missouri Valley Conference vibes. That's the
Yeah.
old Missouri Valley Conference matchup. You know that, Kyle. So I'm excited. I mean, I hope there are no snafus, but we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see, guys. Before we wrap this up, give you guys the floor to pick your Final Four teams and who's going to face off in the national championship game and who's going to ultimately take the title. It doesn't have to be you guys' final picks if it's not your final pick, because we have until Thursday to change our minds, and we'll listen to everybody and their mama give their opinions about these teams. So, Lakeena, I'll start with you. I'll call it your rough draft. Who you have in your Final Four in your champion?
Well, I'll be a chalkhead here. I'll pick all 4 number 1 seeds. Right now, again, this is all subject to change, but right now it doesn't. I don't see any team that can knock any of these number 1 seeds out. But again, it's subject to change. So my pseudo rough draft Final Four, I have all 4 1 seeds.
And I'll go. Yeah. This is definitely a rough draft. I'm gonna have about 2 or 3 combinations out there. As the Final Four goes, I'll go with Illinois and Gonzaga. Definitely, I'll stick with Alabama out the East, and with the the South, I'll. I took down my thing too early. I'll just say Baylor for now, but yeah, I'll just go with 3 number 1s instead of 4, and Illinois and Gonzaga in the title game. I'm unabashed here, man. I want Illinois to win. I want them to finally bring a national championship to Champaign. So however it goes, I want to see Illinois with the win in the end, and I would say they would knock off Gonzaga in the final game.
I'll go.
I didn't say my champion said. I'll say Baylor. Just because, Scott Drew, everything he's done for that program, from the dumps of where they were. You can Google back in the early 2000s. Y'all can Google that. So, I won't rehash it, but I'll have Baylor and Gonzaga playing in the title game. I'll say Baylor wins.
I'm going with you, Kyle. You kind of made my rough draft picks early, but I'm taking 3 of the 4 number 1 seeds to make the Final Four. Out of the South, watch out for Ohio State. I know they lost a close one to Illinois earlier today in the Big Ten title game, but watch out for them. They can make a surprise run coming out the South. So I have Illinois win the whole thing as well, because this is a team that's on a mission, and they have to act together. As long as they stay out of foul trouble, obviously no outside issues, no injuries. This Illinois team should at least make the Final Four, and it should be fun. And I will predict they will face the Loyola Ramblers of Chicago in that second round. So next Sunday should be fun watching television. If you're in the Chicagoland area or you're in the state of Illinois, you'll have pride to wear on your chest of watching that game.
So there'll be some bar scenes up on the north side, man. Y'all.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you go out
Social
to.
distance.
Yeah. And shout out to our guy Jason Kessner, who's a Loyola alum. Yeah, so I know he's going to have a good time watching his Loyola Ramblers. Guys, any final thoughts before we close this out?
You go first, Kyle.
Yeah, pretty much what I said before. Just wish the best for the tournament overall. Like you say, Sid, a lot of money's on the line here. Unfortunately, none of it's going to the kids, to the people who deserve it most. But just for the sake of this event, which we all hold so dear, let's see it go forward as with as few hiccups as possible. As few as possible. Let the game shine in a state that truly loves the sport, Indiana, and let's like I say, see who goes home with the title. Hopefully, it'll be those Illini.
Same here. I mean, I just hope that there are no snafus, like I said a couple minutes ago, and this should be a great tournament. Will it be an all-timer? Probably not, but the fact that we're actually having a tournament this year, because considering that we didn't have one last year, I'm happy. I'm in a, we all should be in, all us Who's fans, college Who's fans should be in a great place right now.
Yeah. I echo those same sentiments as you guys just said. I'm just happy as a fan that we get the tournament back. I know things are slowly going back to normal. We're not there yet as far as the rest of society, but as we all know, sports is that propel vehicle towards change for the rest of society, and March Madness is part of that. So I'm just happy as a fan that we get to watch March Madness, unlike a year ago. You could legally bet on individual games, not just participate in those office pools, but I may
Don't
participate in a
go
pool or
overboard.
two, but
Don't
that's
go
about it.
overboard on this.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
I'm
don't do it.
not.
No, don't do
I'm
it.
not making that kind of cash, at least not yet. Anyway, so I'm not your boy Mike North, but or DeFalco, but we'll leave that alone.
Well, people getting to me this week too, man. Don't waste your stimmy on betting
Yeah,
on
I'll say, don't do that.
FanDuel or something. Man.
Thank you.
Don't do it. I'll say, don't do it, guys. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Pay your bills first.
Yeah.
Do your business.
All right. The 2021 NCAA March Madness tournament will start on Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on True TV with the first 4 games, and then of course the rest of the tournament will start Friday with the first and second round games across the CBS and the Turner networks. That's TNT, TBS, and True TV. This year, the first round matchups will take place Friday through Monday. Once again, Friday through Monday. The first 4 games will take place this Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on True TV. Guys, thank you for listening and watching to this special program presented by WARR Media and Second City Sports. Once again, that's Lakeena McGee, which is she, Kyle Means, which is he, I am Sidney Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
And Kyle Means, work_right on Twitter, K-Mean on IG, WARR Media everywhere, including IG and Twitter. And you can see YouTube. You can see these guys' smiling faces every Tuesday and Saturday, as well as our other shows. Of course, those running with WARR in the building, and definitely our man Josh Hicks with in the scope, and many others who occasion things, one-off things. We give it to you raw every week on WARR Media, on YouTube, and of course on Anchor, where you can hear our podcast. Definitely subscribe, give us 5 stars wherever you can rate, and definitely share us and like us, however you can press that online.
And tell your friends.
And we'd like to thank Gabe Salgado, our very special guest from Athlon Sports, from athlonsports.com. You can go to that website. He'll be covering the NCAA tournament for that website. He does a great job. He's a friend of this network, and you guys go out and support him. For Lakeena and Kyle, I'm Sid. You've been listening to Second City Sports March Madness preview special for 2021. Enjoy the games, everyone. It should be fun. Let's see if the Fighting Illini can bring home a national championship and bring it home to the state of Illinois. Till next time, holla!
Peace.